Hello, and welcome to For Book's Sake. I am Heather Roberts.
I am Veronica Adams, and we are 1852 Media.
Yes, and today we are talking about more legal in publishing issues.
Yes, we are putting those lawyer hats back on.
Yeah. So this is what we're doing today. This is what's printed
She
out.
printed it out. Oh my
I printed
God.
out. I need to highlight, my friends. I read
Yes.
everything and I highlight.
Yeah.
It's just how law school for me was,
Oh,
and
come
you
on.
know
Like you weren't doing that in undergrad too. Don't blame it on law school.
but I'm just saying specifically, I was not of the digital era
No, that's true.
during.
We are dinosaurs. We were in that
Yeah,
transitionary phase where a lot of our post-secondary education was still ink and
yeah.
paper.
And so it just, I don't know, the paper to me, I
Yeah.
recycle it all, it goes back into, so
Yep. Yep. Yep.
we're
Yep.
okay. But as a disclaimer from the beginning, all of this is our opinion. This is for entertainment purposes
Yes,
only.
this is not legal advice.
This is not legal advice. Veronica and I are both licensed attorneys. We are not
We are.
your attorneys. So if there
Yes.
is an issue in this episode that you relate to, we highly
Yeah.
recommend you
Yeah.
seek counsel in your state of
That's
record.
right. That's right. We are no longer anybody's lawyers, even though
That's
we
right.
are regrettably still lawyers.
Yes, we're recovering attorneys. But that means we have opinions, and you're about to hear them.
That's right.
So, what are we talking about today? On the docket for today's episode is the case of Bang Laugh Love LLC versus Brea Vera and Monique McDonald collectively, aka Pippa Green.
Yeah.
First,
Shout out to
Bang
Pippa Grant for Bang
Pip,
Laugh Love,
yeah,
right?
Bang Laugh Love LLC. Massive shout out there.
Yeah.
That is chef's
Great,
kiss.
great corporate name, great LLC
Love it.
name, great business entity name.
We love it. That
Yes.
that was so well done, Pippa Grant.
Yes.
So Pippa Grant is the pen name of Bang Laugh Love LLC.
That's right.
Bang Laugh Love BLL, as it's called then later in
Yes.
the pleadings,
Yes.
or I'm just going to call it Bang because that's better.
Perfect.
So Bang is owned by the person who writes Pippa Grant.
Yes.
I don't want to put out her real name. I mean, it's all throughout the documents.
It is.
Because of an issue that we will talk about. But I don't feel the need to put that out. I had to pay, $50 for these documents, and I was thus privy to her real name. If you are dying to know what her real name is, you too can go on to
That's
Pacer,
right.
make
You
your own
just
account,
need a
and
Pacer account and a
and
credit
buy.
card. You too
Yeah.
can find out Pippa Grant's real name.
I just don't. We here at 1852, we understand the value of pen names. We understand the value of
Absolutely.
all of that, and there's no
Mad
benefit.
respect to the anonymity that a lot of authors
Yes,
prefer to conduct their business under.
right.
Absolutely.
And this was not. They didn't put any sort of gag order. They didn't do anything in this document to protect her
It
identity,
wasn't redacted. Yeah.
which they could have. However, I'm still going to just not mention it. I know that was a long explanation, but you'll understand as we go through.
Yes.
We'll call her something else.
Yes.
I'll just call her Pippa. Well, no, I can't do
No,
that.
you bet.
I'll call her Grant.
Not.
I'll call her Grant,
Yes.
or something of that nature to try to make sure that we understand who's who.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, the reason I can't call her just Pippa is because here's what happened. All right, imagine that you have written a lot of books, right?
Yes.
We're
Even
talking, I think like
publishing
60,
for 5 or 6
60
years
books.
at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That you have now you've amassed a newsletter list of over 100,000 subscribers.
Oh my God, that was one of the biggest takeaways from the
I
pleadings
know.
for me too.
Same. I was like, good on ya. That was
Girl knocked it out of the park. 100,000 in less than a decade is incredible.
Amazing.
Well, very well done.
Very well done.
well done.
So you've amassed over 100,000 subscribers.
Yes.
You have been on Amazon bestseller lists.
USA Today.
Yeah. You have written romantic comedies, a lot of them sports romance, hockey romance,
Yep.
and as well as some others. And you've written them all under the pen name Pippa Grant.
Right.
And you've amassed this amazing following. You have 42,000 Facebook followers. You have a
Mm-hmm.
group of, I think she calls them pipsqueaks, which is
Yep.
adorable.
It is.
And you have been building this brand. And then along comes someone or someone's, and they release a book that is written by a pen name of the name Pippa Green.
Yeah.
And the hero in the debut book from Pippa Green is named Grant. And then you go and you look up who these people are that, created Pippa Green. And you realize that at least one of the people has promoted themselves as an expert in marketing and how to basically market with a specific
Hmm.
pen name and how to
Yeah.
market, using the trends to, your advantage when you're
Right.
creating pen names and marketing. And you realize that this person is essentially trying to rip off your followers and your fans,
Yep.
which, okay, we want to be very clear here. There is not the pen name sort of crossing over happens from time to time, right?
Sure.
Like there
Sure.
can be some confusion from time to time, depending upon what it is. There was a whole, I remember there was the Jennifer Armentrout situation because there was somebody writing as Jennifer Armentrout, and then Jennifer Armentrout, Jennifer L. Armentrout, became very popular,
Yeah.
and there was a whole issue. One of them, the other Jenny Trout is now what she goes by. She ended up changing her name because of the confusion. The issue there is that those were real names. Those were like
Right. And you
government
cannot prevent
document.
someone from using their legal name if they want to. But you
Correct.
just can't stop them from doing that.
Yes, and both parties ended up making some, trying to figure out, like
Right.
Jennifer L. Armentrout put her initial in there, trying to differentiate.
Yes.
There was a whole thing there, but this is not the case of that. Nobody's real name is Pippa
Right.
Grant or Pippa Green.
These
Okay,
are made
these
up
are
names
made up names.
designed to provide cover and anonymity and to be a brand that is perhaps more appealing to the romance community than someone's
Yes.
government name, right? Because, like, that's a thing that happens in pen names. How can we make
Yeah.
this unique or cute or fun or sexy or, suspenseful, right?
Yeah, and certain names have different, like, feelings to them,
Yes.
right? So, Pippa Grant is sort of like a cutesy name, like, it sounds rom-com. Sounds
Pippa
like
is
Pippa
the
Grant.
perfect first name for a rom-com author, for
Yeah.
someone who writes light, sweet,
Yes.
not necessarily clean, but like fun, flirty romances, for
It's
sure.
great. It's great. So the thing that I thought was interesting here is that the defendant, McDonnell, had been a member of the Pippa Grant Facebook fan group, the Pip
Yeah.
Squad,
Yes.
since April 5th, 2021.
She joined the group right before they published the first Pippa
Yeah.
Green book.
Yes. And I was like, "Oh, that is interesting.
Yeah.
That does not bode well
Yeah.
for the defendants here."
It's a very bad look. Like,
It's a bad look.
no one has admitted to wrongdoing as far as I'm aware. Okay.
Correct. Correct.
Um, but like the evidence is just so damning, right? You slide right into the reader group and start hanging out, studying the brand. You're adjacent to it while you are also emulating it basically directly.
Yeah. Yeah,
That,
it's
that,
not a good look.
that looks like an intent to commit fraud to me.
Yeah, or an intent, yeah, it's an intent for confusion for
For
sure.
sure. For sure.
So that's that's basically it. Well, the one thing, okay, so Pippa Grant had the foresight to
Yeah.
trademark her name.
Yes, she did.
And good on you. So Bang filed a trademark registration for the name for the mark Pippa Grant.
Right.
As part of that application process, okay,
Yeah.
in order to trademark a name, right, of a
Mhm.
living person, there needs to be an affidavit filed. I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible, okay?
Yeah, it's pretty.
It's pretty convoluted.
It's convoluted for sure.
Yeah. And there's a reason I'm telling you this. I wish I wasn't, but there's a reason I'm telling you this. So there's as
Because lawsuits are stupid.
lawsuits are so stupid. So there's an affidavit that had to have been filed as part of that package. Okay.
Yeah.
So Bang files the trademark registration package. As part of that package, there's an affidavit filed by Grant. Okay. But real name Grant.
Yes, yes. The
Um,
actual person behind Pippa Grant.
yes, the actual person behind Pippa Grant. And she makes a variety of statements saying that, like, I control these books,
Yes.
I self-publish these books, and I am Pippa Grant.
Yeah.
For lack of there's more technical language. You can go look it up. But that's basically what it says, okay?
Right.
And then she signs it as the applicant of the package, okay?
Yeah.
This is made to be a ridiculous thing in this lawsuit. I'm not shitting you. At least 20 grand worth of legal fees went into fighting about whether the trademark registration was valid or not
Yep.
because real name Pippa Grant stated that she was the applicant on this affidavit
Yeah.
that was attached to the trademark application
Right.
that Bang filed
Yes.
because Bang was the applicant, not real name Pippa Grant.
Right. Right. Right.
So at most a slight ambiguity, which by the way, for the record, and everybody agrees to this in the record, that Bang is made up of one person, and that one person is real name Pippa Grant.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But like, so let's back up for a second and talk about
Sure.
procedurally why this is even important, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
at some point after the defendants, collectively Green, right? Pippa Green, after they have been publishing under Pippa Green for some time, Pippa Grant discovers
Yes.
this brand and these books and the confusion among her readers who think that their books are her books.
There's a lot
Yeah.
of confusion.
Yes.
Yeah.
So her lawyers send a cease and desist letter to the two people operating the pen name Green.
Yes.
And then ultimately this lawsuit becomes necessary because the cease and desist does not accomplish everything they wanted it to.
Oh my God. So, yeah, so this is what happened,
Uh-huh.
at least from the documents, right? This is what
Yeah.
I'm reading happened. So, Pippa, there's all this confusion. Like, literally, there's Amazon reviews saying, like, I've read other books by Pippa Grant
Yes.
on the Pippa Green
Yes.
reviews.
Reviews of Pippa Green's books referencing Pippa Grant's catalog. Like it's clear
Yeah,
as day that there are some readers out here who do not understand that these are two different brands.
correct. And different people.
Right.
When you search for Pippa Grant, your Pippa Green books are showing up on the Amazon searches because
Amazon be Amazoning.
Amazon is thinking that you meant to search for Pippa Green because of the way that
And because there's so much
vice versa.
crossover between those two brands, right? Because the readers are consuming them both because they're in the same genre,
Yeah, I was going to say
subgenres,
they're both rom-coms.
substantially similar.
They're both like hockey sports related.
Right, right. So
And
the
all of
algorithm
that.
on Amazon is going to serve both of them to you, often in screenshots in the court documents, literally next to each other in search results.
Yes.
Yeah,
So all of these things happen.
right,
And then a cease and desist was sent from Pippa Grant to the Pippa Green people.
right.
And then 8 months of negotiations ensue.
Yes.
Okay. 8 months. I cannot even imagine why. Why was this even a fight? Right? Like
I have a question for you. How, like, do you engage in 8 months of negotiations after sending a cease and desist? Like, just as a legal matter, right?
right, right.
Like, I'm not sending one unless I've got the lawsuit drafted. You know what I mean?
100%.
Like, I'm
And
giving you 30, 45, maybe 60 days to respond to me in good faith, and if we aren't in an agreement in 90 days or less,
the
this
lawsuit's
is
being
this is
filed.
this is going in front of a judge, period.
Like
8
8 they
months.
gave it yeah. Pippa Grant was trying desperately not to file this lawsuit. That's how I
Which
take that.
I mean, and probably for good reason too, because the billables in a litigation
Yeah.
situation are just out of control. So you're spending a ton of money to litigate something. But seriously, 8 months of negotiations. You
Well,
want to talk
and
about trying to avoid the lawsuit?
yeah.
That's trying to avoid a lawsuit.
And I cannot understand why the Pippa Green people were so unwilling to do what was necessary because the amount at issue, they even say that the amount at issue is less than $75,000.
Right.
And because they're talking about you don't care. But just know that I know
The
that
amount in
the amount
controversy
at
for pleading requirements and jurisdiction and everything else. But yeah,
yes, that the amount is less than $75,000
right.
that the green people made on these books. And I mean,
Still
both of
have to
them
go to federal court because it's a trademark thing. But
right.
yeah.
And both of these people spent definitely that in
Oh,
legal
I'm
fees.
sure. I'm
I
sure.
mean, combined, most likely,
Yeah,
um, to get it to the point
absolutely.
that it was getting. And so 8 months worth of negotiations. So what happened in these negotiations? Okay, let's look at the timeline. All right. So they send the C&D, okay, on September 26, 2022. Pippa Grant provided defendants with the formal notice of trademark infringement
Right.
with
Right.
cease and desist. Okay. Um, as early as October 17th, 2022. So this is like a month later, right? Defendants rebranded the Pippa Green mark to Eden Dunn.
That's right. That's
Okay.
right.
So about a month after they get the C&D, Green does capitulate at first. And they
Yes.
say, okay, we're going to rebrand under the name Eden Dunn. Okay. So and I'm sure Grant was like, wonderful. That's fantastic. We can just move along
Yes.
and live our lives, and none of this has to be a problem. That's not what happened. So, so on November 1st, the Green people announced the rebrand to members of the Pippa Green email list.
Yes, they have their own newsletter. They tell all their
Yes,
subscribers they're no longer Pippa Green. They are now Eden Dunn.
we are now Eden Dunn.
Right.
Um, and they use the same cover art and a same everything
Yeah.
for the Pippa Green books. They just changed the name to Eden Dunn. That's literally all they did.
Mhm.
So they then continually repeat references in their email announcements and on social media many times to that Pippa Green is now Eden Dunn. And sorry, I'm looking at notes here, but
Yeah.
to the
We're
point
rebranding. We're rebranding.
rebranding.
We're
Yes.
rebranding. Yeah.
Saying it multiple times to the point that now people know that Pippa Green is Eden Dunn.
Yeah.
This is where it bites them because they have now forever linked Eden Dunn to Pippa Green.
Yes.
And in a
After already
way,
establishing a bunch of confusion among readers between Pippa Grant and Pippa
yes.
Green. Yes.
To the extent that in June of 2023, Pippa Grant is still receiving emails asking where to find the Minnesota Raiders series
Uh-huh.
that was written by the Pippa Green people.
Yes.
So clearly their rebrand was not effective because they did not, also, they didn't take down the Pippa Green website or
Yeah.
the newsletter list. They were still some of the books had
Mhm.
links to that, like in the back matter or whatever, said like
Yeah.
Pippa Green and stuff like that.
Nor did anyone ever issue a statement addressing the fact that Pippa Green was not and is not and never would be Pippa Grant, that there was a differentiation between the two
Right.
brands.
Yeah. So like there was still all throughout this time the Pippa Green website is still up with links to Amazon for
Yeah.
purchasing Pippa Green branded books that now take them to a book that says Eden Dunn on it, but everything else is the same.
Yeah.
So I think this is where the 8 months comes into play, right? So Pippa Green branded ebooks, say that 10 times fast, were available and on sale through the Pippa Green website and on Amazon through October 19, 2022. And at least one Pippa Green branded printed book is still on sale on Amazon as of September 3rd, 2023.
Right. Right.
So this is the problem. The problem isn't so a month after they get the C&D, green people capitulate and they're like, "Oh, yeah, we'll change
We'll
our
change
name."
the name. Yeah.
But
Exactly.
then they didn't do a good job of changing the name.
They didn't clean up the mess they made. Like,
Yeah.
it is that simple.
I mean, this happens from time to time, right? You are allowed to then post like whatever your agreement is, right? That
Right.
should have been hashed out between the two authors. If you're rebranding, trying to not to avoid a lawsuit, then you should have some sort of a grace period in there to
Yeah.
allow you to clean up the names of everything, scrub it, right? And also like advertise in some way that you are the new whatever.
Right. Right. Well, and beyond that, let's take a step back to before all of this started, right? If you're going to be this sketchy
Yeah. I
about
mean,
building an
yeah.
author brand and basically imitating to the point of theft a
Yeah.
lot of the brand elements of another more established author, do your research and figure out whether or not someone has a registered trademark for their pen name or any of their other branding elements first,
I
because
know.
that's ultimately what gave rise to this lawsuit, is the
Yeah.
fact that there was a Pippa Grant trademark here.
Right.
And
If there wasn't a Pippa Grant trademark, it would have been a lot harder for Pippa Grant to win
absolutely,
this. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, take that for what it's worth and go see an IP lawyer to find out how to best protect your brand. But, like, seriously,
Yeah.
a
And
little bit of searching the Federal Register would have saved these ladies a lot of trouble.
here's the thing though. I think they did. I mean, they maybe didn't search the trademark portion, right? They certainly
Right,
didn't do that.
right.
Which is your point. But they
Yes.
definitely did some searching when they were
Oh,
coming up with their
no,
name.
they did their
Like,
homework from a branding perspective,
oh
like, in
yeah.
terms of looking at the market and trying to figure out who to copy so closely without actually going over the line, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
That part's evident. But yeah, I mean, the registered trademark is really what brings us into federal court and makes this lawsuit as big as it is. Otherwise, it ends up being probably a state level cause of action for,
Right.
some sort of
Some
civil
sort of,
claim.
or common law,
Yep.
copyright and
Yep.
or common law trademark or something to that
Yep.
effect. Which is also valid, but not a federal lawsuit here.
Right.
Um, so yeah, it this whole case is wild. Okay,
Right.
it's just wild
Yes.
because one of the green people is putting themselves out as a marketing expert, and then this is this is what has happened. So I don't know if an expert in what, I'm not sure. But not in avoiding lawsuits. That is the fact.
Yeah.
So Pippa Grant is dealing with this and is trying to do her best to not file this lawsuit because for
Right.
8 months she's given them time after time after time. And I imagine she's constantly, having to send her attorney, having to send another letter like this is
Right.
not sufficient, because they said that the negotiations were like 8 months, like this was protracted
Right. Right.
negotiations. And then finally, they just said, "Fuck it, we're
You've had
filing."
enough time.
Yeah,
We have reached an impasse. There's something here that needs to happen that you're refusing to do. Whatever the case may be, the complaint gets filed and the allegations are made, and
This is where we are.
When we get the answer and affirmative defenses and counterclaims, and
Oh my
we are off to the
God.
races.
So Pippa Grant sued the Pippa
Pippa
Green.
Green.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is two people. So that's why I keep
Yes.
saying the Green people. So Pippa Grant sued the Green people for trademark counterfeiting and infringement under the Lanham Act.
Yes.
Okay. That's count one. Count two.
Unfair competition and false
Thank
designation
you.
of origin under the federal statutes.
Yes. And then count three is common law trademark infringement
Yep.
and unfair competition under the laws of Virginia.
Yep.
So that's where they were at. So then the defendants
The
file
green
an
people.
answer. Yeah, the Green people.
And the answer is basically what you would expect. It's pretty much a denial of most of the allegations and some confirmations of some of the recitations of fact in the complaint. I mean, it
Yeah,
looked like standard boilerplate answer to me for the most part.
it was mostly boilerplate. They state that they, stopped using Pippa Green, that they started
Mm-hmm.
using Eden Dunn. They deny that they're currently selling any books under the Pippa Green pen name.
Bold denial given the Amazon screenshots attached to the complaint.
Sure was. I imagine though that it at the time of writing the answer that it was true, but at the time in which the complaint was filed, that was
Yeah.
awfully true. I
Yeah.
have a feeling that got taken down.
Clean that up before they filed their answer.
Uh-huh. And then so they filed a bunch of affirmative defenses, which is what you do when you file an answer, okay? So if you don't file affirmative defenses,
You waive them.
you waive them. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So it is very normal to file and frankly malpractice if you do not file affirmative defenses.
Even if they're bullshit, because you
Yeah,
have to preserve them for the record. Like a judge could strike all of them in a simple, in a standard hearing, motion
yeah.
hearing or whatever. But if you don't plead them, they're gone forever and you can't appeal based on them. Like they're just not part of the record. So
And sometimes things come up in discovery and you realize you have facts that can support your affirmative defense that you
uh-huh.
might not have at the time of filing the answer. Anyway, so you're filing the answer. They have affirmative defenses, very normal stuff, nothing massively objectionable.
Yeah.
I did think that the one affirmative defense basically talking about fraud, which ends up getting stricken, was wild. That plaintiff's registration, the trademark registration, was obtained fraudulently and not entitled to protection.
Yeah.
I was like, oh well, this will be interesting. And
Yeah.
turns out it was in a
Ended up
expensive way.
yes, ended up being one of the most aggravatingly interesting things about the case, honestly.
Yes. And then,
But wait, there's more.
oh wait, there's more. Instead of just answering the complaint,
Right.
instead of just answering the complaint and dealing with the issues and having your affirmative defenses, the defendants took it a step further and filed a counterclaim
And
ag-
sued Pippa Grant
and
back.
sued Pippa Grant back.
Yes. Like,
I do not understand the legal advice that was provided in this moment.
no, but now at this point, procedurally, I understand the 8 months of negotiations, right?
Yeah.
Because
Oh, yeah.
clearly, this is where the parties could not get it together, right?
Yeah.
So there's something that the Green people or their attorneys decided was material to resolving this outside of court. And they just couldn't come to an agreement. So now we have the lawsuit and also the counter lawsuit.
Yeah. So the counterclaim has a few counts, okay?
Yes, it
The
does.
first count of the counterclaim
The
is
the Greens suit against Grant.
yes.
Right.
So that is a declaratory judgment of non-infringement. That's the first counterclaim. They want to declare.
Right.
Okay. All
They
right.
want the court to state affirmatively that there was no infringement.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I read that and I was like, all right, sure. The second one is a cancellation of the trademark registration of Pippa
This is where
Grant.
shit starts to get wild.
Truly, truly wild. Um, yeah. Okay. So they have reasons.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And then the third counterclaim is damages sustained in consequence of the false and
Mhm.
fraudulent procurement of a federal trademark
Yeah.
registration.
Yeah. The audacity to claim that Pippa Grant has damaged them because Bang falsely procured the trademark for Pippa Grant, and the Green people
Yes.
have somehow suffered harm from that, including financial loss and or anything else that has given rise to this lawsuit.
Right. And so they are asking for a dismissal of plaintiff's claims with prejudice,
Mhm.
declaring that the use of Pippa Green and or Eden Dunn does not and will not infringe any
Yeah.
trademark, cause confusion or mistake or deceive the public, constitute unfair competition or false designation, basically all of the claims against
Yeah.
them.
A
Um,
cancellation of the trademark.
yes. And then awarding damages in favor of the defendants in an amount to be determined at trial, for the damages that they are owed because of the alleged false trademark registration,
Right.
declaring this an exceptional case and awarding defendants their reasonable costs and fees. That would be attorneys' fees and costs that can only be granted under exceptional cases, and you have to request that
Yeah.
now if that's something you're going to be asking for later. So that's not like for maybe a layperson reading that, they would be like, "Oh my god, what the fuck?" But like
Right.
that's
Pretty
normal,
standard.
pretty standard.
Yeah. You want
Um,
attorney's fees, you got to get that out there almost immediately in most cases.
Yeah. And you're always going to put that in there because on the off chance that a court
I've
does
seen some
decide,
cases where it didn't happen.
oh
People,
God,
yeah.
that's
Woe be the attorney who forgot to plead for their own fees.
truly, truly. That is standard boilerplate. You plead
It
for your
really
own
is.
fees. You
It
plead
really
for your
is.
own fees. Always. If there is a statute that allows it, you put it in there. So
Even if you're not entitled to them, ask for them
Mhm.
anyway. That way it's in the record. If it gets stricken, it gets stricken. But like
Ask for it anyway. Yeah.
crazier things have happened.
This is one of those you're throwing spaghetti at the wall situations.
Listen, my contracts professor in 1L, he literally drilled it into us. It never hurts to ask.
It does not.
It never hurts to ask.
Yeah.
And I mean that he was kind of well. That advice applied to a lot of other things besides what we were learning in class, I think, is what I'm trying to say, but we'll leave it
Yes. Yeah.
there.
But so yeah, okay. So back to this. So we have a situation where Bang sues the green people.
Yeah,
And then the green people turn around and sue Bang back,
that's right.
saying that your trademark is not valid and somehow that damages us
That's right.
and you owe us money actually.
Well, of course it damages them, right? Like their theory of the case is going to be we've had to rebrand
Yes.
because you are now asserting rights that you don't actually legally have because your trademark registration is false. Like I mean it
That's their theory of the case.
is it accurate?
Mhm.
Judge and or jury would ultimately decide that. But
Well, the
that
judge does decide that. But in this case,
spoiler alert, that counterclaim gets stricken.
yeah. Yeah. But yes, I think it's important to note. So, from the perspective of the defendants, this is
Yeah,
their theory of the world. Their
right.
theory of the world is that the trademark is invalid. And
Yes.
as Veronica was stating, if the trademark is invalid, that basically frees up their ability to do whatever shady shit they want to do.
To make less
Um,
than $75,000 trying to pretend to be Pippa Grant and confuse readers.
Yes, basically. But it makes them not legally liable
Right.
for a lot of this stuff.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that is the key. That's what they're
That's
trying to get out of.
right. Ultimately, that's the biggest piece of the puzzle here because if they can prove this fraud with respect to the registration, then the registration gets canceled, and the rest of the claims that Grant has against Green pretty much go up in smoke.
They fall apart. Yes.
Yes.
So,
Which again is why it's so important to make sure the author you're going to copy doesn't have a registered trademark.
right. And so important why if you do build a brand that is successful, you trademark your name.
Maybe you trademark it anyway. I
Yeah,
mean,
trademark, yeah. It's not
it's not a bad
incredibly
idea.
expensive. I mean, it's not overly expensive, okay?
Yeah.
It's not like it's thousands and thousands. It's less than $1,000.
Yes.
So, if you're
And it holds up
some
better than trying to brand a single word or phrase
yeah.
associated with whatever it is you write. Is another
And
case I'm sure we'll talk about
we
eventually.
we will absolutely talk about
Love
that
that one.
baby. That one
Love
is gonna
that
be a
one.
long episode.
Yeah, we may have to do it
Um,
in multi-part.
yeah. But yes, that is absolutely correct. So,
Yeah.
trademarks matter. This is why trademarks matter,
Yes.
okay? So then we get into a situation where now we have, like, half you saw that stack that I had.
Yes.
3/4 of the fucking stack was talking about this trademark, whether it's
The
valid or
the
not.
the alleged fraud in the registration of the trademark and whether or
Yes.
not it's valid. Yeah.
Yes. And I literally had to roll my eyes when I was reading some of this because I was, oh my God, I could not believe that I mean, I
Mhm.
can believe it because I used to do this shit. But like this is the part of the law that used to infuriate me is when you fight over this minutia detail
Yes.
that has really nothing.
Yes.
It matters to the point where it's the crux of whether the case is going to exist or not,
Yeah.
but it has nothing to do with the substantive, like, facts,
Right.
right?
Right.
And that's what drives me nuts. But anyway, um, so then we get into Bang's um motion to dismiss the defendant's third counterclaim and their
Mhm.
motion to strike their fourth affirmative defense based on fraud.
Right.
So their third counterclaim, as we recall, is the one about damages for the alleged fraudulent trademark registration.
Right.
And the fourth affirmative defense was the one saying that the registration was made via fraud.
Yes.
Okay. So Bang is filing a motion to dismiss and strike.
Right.
Essentially, it would be a dismissal for lay people as well. It's a dismissal of the affirmative defense. It's just called striking it
Yes.
if it's an affirmative defense and not a anyway. Um, terminology, but that's why it's talked about that. So
Really the only reason you go to law school.
yeah, this is
Honestly.
you learn all of this. It gets so convoluted, and I can understand how people could not follow some of this stuff
Yes.
because sometimes
Yes.
it gets confusing to me too, and I know all the terms. So yeah, so they filed this memorandum of law in support of that motion,
Mhm.
and basically say had defendants undertaken even a rudimentary investigation of the facts, they would have discovered that real name Pippa Grant is the sole member of Bang based on publicly available documents.
They were fully aware of it. They just they just
Yeah.
pled the counterclaim and asserted the affirmative defense anyway. And I mean, you
Yeah.
know, from a procedural standpoint, it was probably correct to do so, but still doesn't mean it wasn't bullshit.
Right. So they basically say, the owner of the mark was listed as Bang.
Right.
Um,
Bang is wholly owned by Grant the individual.
yes. That attorney that filed um, the trademark stuff,
Yes.
filed a publicly available voluntary amendment to satisfy the requirements for a pen name that identifies a living individual because the Pippa Grant mark identifies real name Pippa Grant.
Right.
Um, and so they file, failure to state of claim, which is a motion to dismiss standard. And they are saying so the affirmative defense of based on fraud,
Mhm.
um, they argue that it has to satisfy Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 9B, which has a heightened pleading requirement.
Yes.
And when,
This is more legal nonsense.
yes, and basically you have to have a heightened pleading requirement when you are saying that there's fraud.
Right.
Um, to get away from things like this where you just sort of throw it in there and don't
Bare bones,
actually
put the absolute minimum you can in terms of what the facts are as you state
yeah.
them.
And the heightened pleading requirement basically says that you need to have the elements
Yes.
available and readily available for
Right.
pleading fraud.
This particular kind of allegation or claim the bar is not on the floor, essentially.
Yeah, the bar is higher than that.
Yes.
And so there's a presumption of validity for the registration of a trademark that once it exists, that it is true and
Right.
correct. Right. And then, they just go through some legal sorcery. I'm not going to go through the entire, motion to dismiss because it's basic. It can get it's very technical, right? And
Right.
that's the whole point of it, is basically that they're saying that these things do not rise to the legal standard that
Yes.
exists, and that everything is on the up and up. We
Right.
filed the trademark registration was valid when it was filed. It's
Mhm.
valid today. We are all good. Here is why.
Right. The facts don't support allowing this claim to continue. That on a summary judgment motion or
Yeah.
at trial, anybody doing the fact finding, whether it's judge or jury, would have to side with Grant in this case because the facts just don't support what Green is asserting.
Right. And so as you would expect, because not like Green's going to give up at this particular
Of
point.
course not.
Green has already filed a counterclaim,
Yes.
so they're not in a position to back down
They're
now.
pot committed at this point. Their attorney's getting
Yes,
paid one way or another.
yeah, their attorney is living the life here. And I will say that I did appreciate how their attorneys put together this reply or this answer
Yeah.
to the counterclaims, and or I'm sorry, plaintiffs. That's what I'm talking about. I appreciated plaintiffs Bang's answer to the counterclaims and what their attorneys did, because they actually put the counterclaim and then the response below it. Oh, that was so
Yes.
nice. Thank you for that.
Rather than just reciting the counterclaims and then putting all of the answer after reciting the counterclaims.
Yeah, yeah, it was nice. Um, but
Very
yeah, I'm trying to
mindful, very
think.
aware.
So then we have the defendant's opposition to plaintiff's motion to dismiss
Mhm.
and motion to strike. I'm trying to see.
More of the pissing match here where we argue about whether or not we're right or they're wrong.
Yeah,
Yes. The usual back and
um,
forth.
the usual
Because
back and forth.
before the judge makes a decision on something like this, both parties have an opportunity to present more evidence and be heard. So
Yes. So there's an opposition,
finger pointing continues.
and then there's a reply from Bang
Yes.
to
To
the defendant's opposition.
yes.
Okay, so that's why it can get confusing. There's the
Yes.
motion to dismiss, and then there's the opposition to the motion to dismiss, and then
Right.
there's a reply to the opposition that
Right.
they filed. So
Right.
you get like an extra go at it as the person filing, the moving party,
Like
if you
watching
will.
tennis, right? You're like, whew,
Yeah.
whew, back and forth, like
And a lot of the information in these documents is the same, right? Just written
pretty much.
differently.
An
Sometimes
occasional
though,
citation to new case law or something, but basically the exact same stuff over and over again.
yeah. Um, but sometimes you can find a new and interesting factoid that hasn't been brought up before, and I've seen that happen. I did find it interesting. So the defendants in their opposition
Mhm.
stated that the court should allow them to pursue their third counterclaim because it will allow them, the defendants, Pippa Green people, to repair perhaps a small part of the damage to their goodwill and reputation inflicted by the plaintiffs through the alleged infringement action.
Pivot to what?
Did you see this? I literally had to go back and look at because I missed it. I saw it in the reply or in the defendant's opposition. Um, and then I saw it in the reply and I was like, what now? But that literally, it's on page 6 of the defendant's opposition to plaintiff's combined motion to dismiss. And they say, lastly, defendants' pursuit of their third counterclaim will allow them to repair perhaps a small part of the damage to their goodwill and reputation inflicted by plaintiff through its alleged infringement action.
The audacity.
They're asking the court to let them get damages for, like, to go forward on this
Right?
so that they can repair the damage to the goodwill and reputation inflicted by plaintiff, inflicted
Right.
by Bang
Right.
for the alleged
Right.
infringement option.
They want Grant to pay them, the green people,
Yeah,
money damages inflicted by Grant's enforcement of Grant's trademark.
right. And then let's just say that Bang's attorneys did not appreciate that line. They didn't. That's where I saw it first. I literally didn't even see that sentence.
Yeah.
Like, because I was, listen, I'm reading these things, your eyes start to
It's a
cross a
lot.
little
I
bit.
missed it. I missed it.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot of stuff.
And it's a sentence. But
Right.
I'm also not getting paid to reply to these things, so I'm not reading them super carefully.
Touche.
Um, Now, the Bangs attorneys, though, they are getting paid, so they're,
Yes.
they're
Please
on
tell me
this.
they laid the smackdown.
They did. They say defendants' request to maintain the fraud-based counterclaim to repair their reputation is not only incredible but also telling. Defendants had the benefit of protracted negotiations to keep their actions out of the
Was
public
that
purview.
8 months, man?
The defendant's actions objectively color them in an unflattering light is no one's fault but their own.
Yes.
That's the beauty of the legal
Yes.
system. Yeah, that was a nice smackdown. So and then they just basically fight some more
I love an
over.
artfully pled sit down and shut up.
Yeah, and that's what that was. It was like, are you be so fucking for real? That's what that
Right.
said right there in legal language.
Right.
Um But yeah, they basically say the only ambiguity here with the trademark registration document
Yes.
is one manufactured by the defendants based on unwarranted inferences, unreasonable
Mhm.
conclusions, and a misunderstanding of the relevant laws and procedures of the trademark office. And they fight a little bit over what does self-publishing mean. I mean,
Tell me you fucked around and found out without telling me you fucked around and found out. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And then we get to the piece de la resistance, which is the memorandum opinion from the judge.
yes.
So, what happens in these situations? I don't know if they had a hearing. I don't think they had a hearing for this
No, I
particular
suspect
case.
not because of all of the document filings. I think this was an unheard uh,
I'm
motion and
looking.
order. 'Cause typically,
Sometimes they will have a hearing. Yeah.
yeah, but when there are that many documents filed on the matter, usually it means the judge is skipping the hearing.
Yeah, no, that's true. Notice of a hearing for a jury trial. Okay,
That's it.
so rule conference 16 conference yeah, there was not a hearing
Okay.
for this particular
That makes sense given
motion.
the motion, the reply,
The opposition,
the memorandum in
memorandum. Yeah,
opposition, the reply. Like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It makes
yeah,
sense.
that tracks.
So then the judge issued their opinion, and basically he agreed with Bang. Okay,
Yes, yes.
he granted the motion to dismiss the third counterclaim
And the fourth affirmative
and the fourth
defense.
affirmative defense. So the
That's right.
whole fraud thing, he basically said that the trademark registration is true and valid and correct, and we're good to
Right,
go there.
right.
Which, as you know, because we told you earlier, when that happens, that means that the rest of that puts Green in a not great position.
Yes, they're
Okay.
now, they've always been on the defensive, but they've never been against the ropes like this until now. So,
Yeah. Um,
so naturally, what happens next, Heather?
so then this was filed, the order, the opinion was filed in April of
Yes,
2024 of
yes,
this year. And by July, we had a joint stipulation of dismissal with prejudice and a settlement agreement in
yes.
place.
The prejudice part is very critical for those who are not
Yes.
initiated. That means this lawsuit can never be filed again by Grant And most likely the counterclaims from the Green people cannot also be filed as their own separate lawsuit at any point in time in the future.
Yes. So we do not know what the settlement agreement includes, except that we do know that the settlement agreement required
A
for
public statement.
a statement to be issued.
Uh-huh.
Yes. So the on 7/16, the joint stipulation of dismissal with prejudice was filed, and then the order granting that was issued on July 17th. And then also on July 18th, a statement was issued. And the statement reads, the party to the lawsuit, Bang Laugh Love LLC versus the Green people.
Yeah.
And the case number and all that, have agreed to settle their dispute. The Green people respect the intellectual property rights of all authors and agree not to challenge the registered U.S. trademark Pippa Grant.
So telling
Yeah.
about how the chips fell in the settlement negotiations.
Oh yeah.
So telling.
Oh yeah. Pippa
That's not
Grant
the
won
kind of
that.
that's not the kind of thing a defendant or a group of defendants or a pair of defendants do unless they absolutely have to.
Correct. Pippa Grant won this
Yes.
100%.
Absolutely.
Pippa Grant's attorneys wrote that. So,
with maybe very minor watering down tweaks from the Greens attorneys. Maybe.
yeah, I mean, if I was Pippa Grant's attorneys, I'd probably wanted more in there. But at the base level, this was, notice it doesn't say anything about Pippa Grant
Her
having to make
claims or
anything,
yeah,
having
nothing.
to make any sort of declaratory statement about
Uh-uh.
anything.
Uh-uh.
It's the defendants respect the intellectual property rights of all authors and agree not to challenge the trademark Pippa
Yeah.
Grant. So that is
Chef's kiss.
yeah, yeah, very telling. We don't know what else was included in the settlement agreement,
No,
but my guess is there was, an affirmative. This is speculation at this point,
of
because, like I
course.
said, we don't know. But there had to have been some sort of, affirmative thing saying that we are definitely going to take all this sort of stuff down.
Yes.
I'm interested to see. Hold on, I haven't even looked, but do Eden Dunn books even
Do they still exist? Can
exist?
you still buy them? Is there an Eden Dunn website?
Let's see. All the paperbacks. No, the ebooks are all down, and all of the paper books are out of print with limited availability.
There you go.
So yeah, Eden Dunn is no more.
Grant
Which
really won this one. Like
yeah,
really won this one.
which was my guess. I
Yes,
was not
of course.
expecting to see Eden
Yes.
Dunn be in existence
Right.
after that lawsuit. So essentially, they could, come back and probably create another pen name, right? But they are not allowed to link it in any way.
Well, and I'm sure that they're planning that. Like, if you have all of this stuff that you've already written, I mean, all you gotta do is tweak it a little bit, rebrand it, put a completely different cover on it, completely different pen name, change some character names, maybe. Like,
Yeah.
so, listen, shady is as shady does. Okay, so like,
Right. These are things to learn from. The
yep,
reason why we're doing these videos is so that you can see what not to do or what to do. Because
yes,
if you're in a situation like Pippa Grant, now you have at least a little bit of a roadmap, right? Or at least to know
hmm
that this happened to somebody else. And if you're thinking about doing something like what the Pippa Green people did, then you know better now.
yeah, yeah.
So this is
Yes.
educational
This
and
this
learning.
discussion hopefully has dissuaded you from pursuing that plan, or if you're still going to do it anyway, at least you'll be smarter about it than the two ladies writing Pippa Green were. I mean,
Right. Yeah. It just
we are nothing if not useful.
That's right. That's right. I mean that and this is why this stuff is so important.
Yes.
because, they say like, "Oh, they're just romance books, they're just fun and silly." Well, yes, of course they are, but they're also businesses.
Yes.
And, you can have situations where trademark issues come up,
Absolutely.
and infringement occurs, and
Yes.
you don't want confusion in the marketplace between brands. You don't. Nobody should want that. You
No,
know.
that's how people get hurt.
I mean, I just had to tell somebody who was I had a potential new client call, and they're a debut author, and I searched the name that they wanted to use just for before the call. And as a piece of free advice, I told the person on the call, you're going to want to need to look at that name because that name already exists on
Mhm.
Amazon. And, spell it differently, do something a little differently. It
Yes.
doesn't look like the original author. They had one book, and it's in a completely different genre. But even still, you're not going to be able to claim that author account.
Yeah.
It's going to be potentially confusing moving
Well, and
forward.
for the entirety of your publishing career, you're gonna be combating the fact that another author was using that name prior to you. So, like,
Correct.
you're gonna have issues claiming titles on BookBub. You're gonna have issues
Yep.
with Goodreads. You're gonna I mean, even if you're not in
It's
the same
not worth
genre,
it. It's
yeah,
not worth it. Just pick something else, spell it differently.
distinguish yourself, exactly.
Put another N in there, put an extra E. I don't know.
Right.
Make it
Use a middle initial of some kind, like,
right.
do something.
You can have the name sound like you want. People spell
Mhm.
things all the time in interesting and unique ways now.
Yes, they do.
Do that. So I'm just if that's the name that you desperately want, right? The
Right,
sound of it.
right.
Make yourself different. That's all I'm saying.
Mhm.
And check these things because
But
this person did
Heather,
not know.
Pippa Green is so different from Pippa Grant.
Oh my god. And I like the Pippa Green people said in one of their myriad of replies and answers
Yes.
that it was a pure coincidence that the hero's name in the first book, their debut book, was Grant.
No, it
And
wasn't.
I was like,
They
no, it
put that name
wasn't.
in the blurb, I'm sure, and then all
100%.
the metadata on
Yep.
Amazon is now
For
cobbled
searching.
together, all of Pippa Grant's catalog with this one book from Pippa Green with the hero named Grant in it, and now they're basically identical for purposes of the algorithm.
Yeah.
It was
Immediately
absolutely a deliberate choice.
100% deliberate. I mean, you cannot tell
And
me differently.
yes, well, and one half of Pippa Green, I'm sure, knew that because she held herself out as a marketing and branding expert and
Yeah.
was very aware of
The Amazon
this kind of
algorithms, the
stuff.
metadata and searchability with
Right.
keywords and all of that.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So there's no way that you can
Mhm.
convince me otherwise. They said that they got it from that it was a popular
Yes.
name on
She was
for
she was
sports players or something.
even invited to and did, I believe, speak or give some sort of presentation on marketing and branding at an author conference in
Oh yeah.
Australia where she lives. So,
At the
like,
RWA conference. Yeah.
was it RWA?
Yeah, it was RWA because they
Lord.
attached as one of the exhibits the like the little thing
Yeah.
about her panel.
Yeah. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a
No.
deliberate choice.
Yeah, 100%. You cannot convince me otherwise.
Yeah.
So, no, yeah. Don't be that guy. Don't do that.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, Pippa Grant, that you had to go through this protracted litigation
Yeah. Yeah.
over something so ridiculous and the amount of money that it must have cost you to do that. Yeah, wild. I hope that the settlement agreement is on terms that you found acceptable.
No kidding.
I truly do because
Ye
this was unacceptable. The
Yes.
counterclaim really is what got me. I mean, listen, I can there's being aggressive, right? And then there's
Yes.
like pounding on your chest when you're wrong. And this was like
The latter.
the latter. The counterclaim was completely unnecessary,
Yeah.
completely unnecessary. Caused
Yes.
a whole lot of more legal fees for no reason.
Well, I'm trying to think about the lawyer's theory of the case here, right? Like,
Mhm.
I guess Listen, if you've got paying clients who are going to fund the litigation and it's a matter of principle for them, I guess, if you're willing to entertain that kind of practice, more power to you. Because,
Right.
at the end of the day, that's ultimately who won here, right?
Oh, the lawyers
Both
always
sets
win.
both sets of lawyers, right? They're the real
Yeah.
winners here. Um, but like it takes some audacity to look at these facts and go, you know what? Let's throw this at the wall, even though there's absolutely it's specious. There's no integrity to doing this, but let's do it
Right.
anyway.
That's what I did. I felt like there was a lack of integrity with that counterclaim.
Uh-huh.
And they just put a
Yeah,
bad taste in my mouth for opposing counsel there.
right.
Um,
It like that sketchy conversation between the attorney and the client where they're like, well, we don't really have a leg to stand on, but if we throw this at the wall and the judge buys it, I can get paid and you guys don't have to give me any money, you
right.
know? And then
Right.
it's like, oh, great. And we can keep using Pippa Green. Let's do it.
Right. And now they're not using Pippa Green, Eden Dunn, or anything of the sort.
Yeah.
Um, good. Good.
Yes.
Lesson learned. Let's hope.
Yeah. So don't be these people and protect your IP. It doesn't really
That's
cost
right.
as much as you think it does.
No, it really doesn't. If you have an attorney helping you, it's going to cost a little bit more.
Sure.
But there are,
It's a
you know,
small investment for long-term security though.
yeah.
I'd pay somebody a few hundred or even $1,000 to take care of this for me if it
I
meant
think
protecting, you know,
your
a
livelihood.
backlist of any size and a brand that's already established.
Yeah.
All day. All day.
I mean, people spend a $900,000 on exclusive images for your book covers. Come on. Pay an attorney $1,200 to get.
What?
Yeah.
What?
I'm sorry. You don't have people doing that?
$900,000? Are
No,
you
no,
just being
900 to
Oh my
1,000.
god.
Sorry.
You're panicking in fiscal
Oh my
responsibility
God, no.
over a $1 million cover
No,
image
no,
custom
no.
photo. Like, what?
900 to $1,000 or
And that
more.
and that's on me needing more coffee.
It's not good. Uh, I mean, I could have been hyperbolic, but no, I was
Oh my
900 to
god. No,
1,000.
yes. Yeah, absolutely. 900 1,000. No. I've had clients spend upwards of 3,500 on
Oh
images,
yeah.
okay?
Oh yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. So 100% worth it to find yourself a trademark IP attorney
Yeah.
who can file your trademark for you for, $1,500, $1,200, whatever.
Yep.
So get it
Absolutely.
done. Get it done. That's our tip for you today.
Find somebody who can avoid doing it with amendment though, as long as like
Oh my
the
God.
the amendment here is really what opened the door to all of this.
Yeah, or just make sure that you're filing it. You're careful with the words in which
Yes.
are spoken. Which, by the way, in the opinion, the judge basically said that it's not a big deal. Like
Yeah.
they're making a much ado about nothing.
Yes. Mountains out of
So
molehills, so to speak.
yeah, and that in order to prove what they were trying to prove, they had to provide malicious intent. Like they basically
Yes.
had to show that there was malicious intent to defraud the patent and trademark office, which there was
Which is
no
hard to
evidence
do
to
when
suggest.
Bang and Grant, the individual, are one and the same.
Correct.
Like when there's nobody else who owns, operates, or manages Bang, it's just Grant, the
Yeah.
the real person behind the pen name. Um, and that individual is also the one who's filing the affidavit. And
Yes.
like, I mean,
Right. It's
that's
not,
a whole nother
and
discussion
that
about
person has the ability to sign on behalf of Bang, and yeah.
corporate
So
the rules and regulations of corporate entities and the
yes.
fiction of businesses and individuals, and
Anyway,
that's a whole other podcast.
that it is. But I hope you learned something today.
Yes.
And
Yes, please take something away from this, or at least just be entertained by the absolute
yes.
shit show.
And if you like this kind of content, let us know. We plan to do more legal
Yes.
breakdowns of
Yeah,
publishing disasters of legal
absolutely.
cases. So until next time, this has been For Book's Sake.